Hi guys, I had a crazy law of attraction event over the last week. My son got bitten by a black snake, and when I went into what emotions came up in me, you're not going to believe what the law of attraction had for me. So guys, during this week, we have been trying to still get work done. We've got two little boys. We've got Harley, who's a 3-year-old, and Xavier, who's a 6-year-old. And when they're both at home in the house, we don't get a lot done, as you can imagine. It's just really difficult. Let alone, you can't shoot a quiet video. It's even difficult to check your emails properly and respond without getting disrupted. So I took them to my parents' place for some babysitting, and when I went to pick them up, I found out that my eldest son Xavier had been bitten by a snake. And he came out and, he was showing me his finger, which was red, and my mother was there and goes, yeah, he got bitten by a snake, he's been sitting inside. And look, they were sort of talking it down, and it didn't seem like that big a deal. And he got on his bike and was sort of riding around a little bit and being a kid. And no one was sort of making too much of a deal about this snake bite that he got. But apparently my father had caught this snake in the garden, kept it in a box. And when the boys came over, he wanted to show them the snake. He let them play with the snake. The snake bit Xavier on the finger. I'm faced with this news. I'm like, oh yeah, how is he? And his finger was a bit red and it didn't look too bad at all. When it was time to leave, my brother sort of pulled me aside. He goes, I don't think that snake was, I don't know, I call it a water snake or something. I think, it was actually a small-eyed black snake, and I've Googled it, and I think you should keep an eye on him because they're classified as highly venomous. I'm like, what do you mean highly venomous? He goes, oh, well, someone's died from one. It says seek immediate medical attention. I'm like, what the hell? So I took him home and I didn't tell Roxy immediately. I thought I'd just keep an eye on him. And he ended up, it progressed. He was in a lot of pain. I took him to hospital. They did the tests and they found there was venom in his system. Enough pain had passed that they probably didn't need to give him anti-venom, but Panadol, Nurofen, it wasn't working. His hand was really getting swollen. It was traveling up his arm. It was like serious. And we're there in hospital, he's crying, they're giving him powerful painkillers because the swelling and inflammation was so bad. And he had this horrible snake bite. And, we had to deal with this over the last couple of days. Well, being on the journey we're on, I dealt with the snake bite and the situation. And, I was preoccupied with looking after Xavier. However, I was also quite aware about thinking, what the hell is going on here? Like, what's coming up in me? Why has this happened? What are the lessons? And pretty quickly, I worked out that once we got him stabilized and, he was happy and back home from the hospital and we got him sleeping properly and that sort of thing, when I went within myself, I got all these feelings come up within me linked back to, and if those of you who've watched my earlier videos, you'll know about how I was there when my little sister drowned. All these feelings came up in me of guilt, and all these feelings came up in me about feelings towards my parents, them not caring enough, whether they did or whether they didn't, them not paying attention enough, whether they did or whether they didn't. It's beside the point. It came up in me. I had to work through those emotions all over again. Now, I thought I'd worked on that stuff. Do you know, like for all these years, I'd been trying to address, the guilt and the blame and etc. linked to what happened to my sister when I was about 5 or 6. So then this is happening for Xavier, and he's going through this pain. And, he was told by my father, well, the reason he got bitten is you squeezed the snake on the tail, so it turned around and bit you. So if you hadn't squeezed it, you wouldn't have got bitten. And it's like, well, you let him hold it in the first place, and he's only 6. You're supposed to be the one who knows whether a snake's safe, not safe. So a little bit of blame coming in, all these emotions coming up, and I was like, trying to navigate the maze, because I'm thinking, oh, now he's probably feeling terrible, and so is mum. And then Xavier's got this blame thing going on. I'm getting triggered by all this stuff. I got Roxanne going, what's the lesson? What's the lesson? I'm like, Jesus, it's all too hard. How am I going to work this out for myself? And I've worked through that through a lot of journaling, a lot of time alone, connecting with the ocean, and just sitting out the back on my board and like getting in touch with how I feel. And it's the same emotions that have come up in me before, but I think this time I was coming at it through another angle. I was coming at it from Xavier's perspective and seeing it through him, but it was bringing up the same emotions in me. And look, while as a father, I've been there with him and, given him love and cuddles and sat up with him all night long when he was, hurting and in pain, and been there and stayed home with him all day long, and he's recovering really well. I think the lesson for me was to go back in and realize that some of these emotions that I thought I'd worked on are always still there. You never clear them out and they're gone. They're cleared out and they are there, forming part of who you are. And this was a way for me to work on one of those emotionally significant events that has happened in my life from another angle. So it didn't mean that I hadn't worked for me and all this clearing that I had done was all a waste and I'm back where I started again, because initially I was like, I thought I worked on this stuff. It was coming at me from another angle, and the caring and the compassion that I had to show when I was looking after Zave. And it was a little strange, like me looking at him was like me looking at myself in a way, which was crazy coming through at times. And then also how I had to work through the blame and look, the anger and just the irritation with my parents, which then turned into compassion and understanding and realizing this whole event is actually an opportunity for learning for the whole family. And that realization was pretty huge. And as soon as I went to compassion and understanding, all the blame went, all the anger went, all the tension between myself and Roxanne and my parents went as well. And I just felt I was at peace with that. And I went to the grocery store and I bumped into my mother and we FaceTimed my father and we went back to healing and resolving that situation. And look, we still need to have a few conversations about handling snakes, which will be had, but the emotional lessons are there. And I wanted to share with you this learning for me, because at the time it was kind of upsetting and I was trying to think, why would something like this happen, especially for poor Zave. But when we got him right and loved and nurtured, the lessons for ourselves, everything is a lesson. We've talked about this. Everything is a lesson, and you can either take the lesson and learn from it and change your law of attraction, or you can ignore it, skip the lesson. The law of attraction might come again and give you the opportunity to experience those feelings again. So if you don't learn the lesson the first time, it's going to come around and bite you the second time. And I think that's the big takeaway. So when something emotionally charged happens in your life, you get angry, you get ticked off, you get, you feel sad or triggered in some way. Once you've dealt with the situation, go within yourself and ask yourself some questions about, when have I felt this emotion before? What could be the opportunity for me to work through this and understand this now? And from that, you're going to get a download or some sort of knowing. If you ask that of yourself, your higher self knows, and you'll be able to work through it and change your law of attraction for the better. Guys, I hope you appreciate me sharing with that, and I kind of made sense of it all. Little Zave is happy and playing well, and he's in the yard this morning on his bike. He's back to his sparky self, so he's going really good, and we're staying right away from snakes here in Australia. Just to let you know, they're not everywhere, and this is the first time that's ever happened. I've never been bitten in my life, but you hear about Australia, God, the snakes everywhere. And this is a real experience for us. But look, as a family, we've worked through it, and I just wanted to share it with you guys.